Hey, just so you guys know, before we go ahead and start this video, we are on Full30 and BitChute. We recognize that YouTube is a private company and they can do basically whatever in the hell it is that they want, but then again, so are we. So, until my viewership goes over to primarily one of those two sources, I still have to keep stuff here. And that's just how it goes. So, if you want to support us someplace else, and if you don't want to support YouTube, go ahead and follow one of the links in the description below for Full30 or BitChute, and we'll see you there. Now, let's get on to the video. Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and this is Regular Guy Training. So, per the berm video that I did last, a lot of guys were asking me about, steel, how to set that up, and all of that. Things to watch out for, that kind of thing. First and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and say this. Steel is fantastic. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do with steel. You can duel your friends. You can set up really unique scenarios and stuff like that. And obviously you get the automatic feedback versus having to go read a target. And in some cases, if you're trying to zero your rifle and you use some paint and stuff like that, zeroing a rifle or a pistol, you can use white paint on a plate, get you pretty close to where it is that you want, and then go to the paper, and it saves you a lot of time from walking back and forth. It really helps. But here's the thing, okay? What I'm going to address first here is things that a lot of people have to say, and this has to do with extremes, right? Now, with regards to safety and ricochets and spalling and that kind of thing, you usually have varied opinions, right? And on one side of the house, you have the guys that say, oh, well, if you're shooting steel, okay, you're only safe to shoot steel. Minimum distance of like 15 yards. Maximum distance is 25 yards with a pistol, and minimum safe distance is 100 yards with a rifle, something like that. The other side of the house is, it don't matter, dude. 2 feet in front of the steel and you're good. Now, as in most things, okay, the extremes on one side or another are pretty bullshit. And the truth lies someplace in the middle. Now, what I am going to say that may make some people uncomfortable here, but it's just the truth, is the longer you stand in front of steel, you'll realize this really fast, okay? The first thing that you got to realize about steel is usually the first thing that a lot of guys got to deal or have to understand about knife fighting, right? And that is, if you get into a knife fight, everybody's getting cut. If you shoot steel, everybody's getting spalled, okay? Your knowledge and how you prepare for certain things alters how badly you get spalled, okay? Now, here's the thing, right? You have to understand the terrain that's around you, okay? First and foremost, it will at least let you know how annoyed you are that day, or are going to be that day. And you understand what's going to happen, and a lot of times you'll change up the clothing that you're wearing depending on what it is that you got to deal with. For instance, right, about a week and a half ago, it's summer, it's hot, and it's dry, right? It was dry for about a week and a half. And the clay that I'm standing on wouldn't really be recognized as clay. It damn near concrete underneath my feet. Which means that it didn't really matter where I stood in relation to these targets. It didn't matter where they were angled or anything like that. If I was using a pistol, I was getting hit by spalling. That was just how it's going to be. Okay? And that really is how it is. Now, the harder the ground is underneath the targets that you're shooting, the greater the chances that you're going to have a piece of spalling hit you pretty hard. And here's the thing as well. If you do this long enough, okay, you're going to catch a jacket or something, a piece of copper jacket most likely, that's going to stick in your skin. And if you do this longer, and if you do enough shooting around it, especially if there's enough people doing shooting around it, eventually you're going to have to stitch yourself up. This is just a reality of the matter. Now, ways to mitigate this. If we're dealing with that dry, hard ground underneath what it is that we're standing on, pants help, okay? Because chances are, if you're getting spalled in the legs. And most of the time, people don't even notice that they're getting hit constantly when they're wearing pants on. Okay, you'll get some in the arms and that kind of deal, but generally speaking, what's coming in the hottest is at your legs, because immediately after the angle, bing, bang, and then it starts to reflect off of that. So the fastest it's ever going to be is towards your shins. Now, I've seen people cut and bleed in the arms and stuff like that. I've seen guys hit in the face and cut and have to pull like jackets out of their face and all of that. And usually that has something to do with how close they are to the ground, but that's not the point. The point is that if you know that the ground underneath your feet is dry and you throw on some pants, you're probably going to be less annoyed. Also, if the ground underneath your piece of steel is pretty hard, I would go ahead and make sure that you have iPro on. Now, obviously, you want to throw Eye and Ear Pro on all the time, right? But I'm not going to sit here and say that I haven't shot steel without iPro on. You guys have seen it more than once on camera, right? Here's the thing. I'm not going to sit here and say that I wasn't wrong, because I am, okay? I'm being lazy, and that's just a fact of the matter. We get lazy and that kind of shit. But I never, ever, ever am going to do that when the ground that I'm standing on is dry, okay? Only time that you guys have ever seen me do that is during the fall winter time in this state, in which the clay is constantly wet, constantly soft, and absorbs the stuff underneath the plates. And really that's when you start getting lazy and that kind of thing. Okay, I'm not going to say that I haven't done it, because I've done it. It's just a reality of the matter. Now, if you're doing higher volume training and that kind of stuff, like if you're doing the equivalent of a class on your own, dude, that's like 1,000+ rounds, throw the stuff on, okay? It just makes more sense to do that than not. So, it is what it is. But as far as the steel placement is concerned, now there's a couple of different ways that guys do this. We've seen, you guys have seen bolted on pieces of steel to like 2x4s, 4x4s, and that kind of thing, and then mounted into a stand. That's really easy to do. It's really cheap, and when you kill the boards, and you will eventually, they're easy to replace. Okay, so that's one way to do it, especially if you're a little handy and know your way around a friggin' saw, and some regular tools. And then you could go the designer route, where you go to like Action Target and shit like that to get, you know, homegrown stands and that kind of thing. I will say this, pay attention to what's going on with your stands when you're getting ready to go buy them. If it's in an actual shop where you can go and touch the stand, right? I want a solid piece of steel holding this thing together. I don't want any hollow tubes or anything like that, or hollow stands holding up my steel. Because here's the thing, anything that's holding up a thing that you shoot is going to get shot. Okay? And if that stand is hollow, chances are you're going to pierce it, it's going to cave, and you'll have spent over $100 for what? Something that can only take a couple of impacts. And here's the thing, if you're out practicing or training, or even if you get steel for like local matches and stuff, it has to be able to take errant hits. You see what I'm saying? So there's another thing. Now, off behind me you see a pair of posts. Now, those posts are usually for like gongs and things like that, where you have to hang a plate from chains. Look, here's a lesson that I've learned, because I've broken a million of them, right? Don't skimp on the chains. Good, heavy-duty chains are going to save you a lot of money down the road, even though they're kind of expensive the first time, okay? That initial price tag that you see on all this heavy-duty shit looks really bad to begin with, until you buy cheap stuff and have to replace it over and over and over again. If you get thin chains to put up your gongs and stuff, I promise you, before that afternoon is over, you'll have had to change out links, or you'll have run out of chain because you've broken it several times. And it's not even because you shot the chain. A lot of guys think it's because they shoot the chains. No, it's because the spalling off of the plate, like when the round actually hits the plate and it disintegrates in pretty much all directions, that's what's cutting your chain, not you shooting the chains. Does that make sense? So, just some food for thought here and there. As far as places to go, it doesn't really matter, to be perfectly honest. so long as whatever it is that you're shooting is rated for rated AR 500 steel, right? Generally speaking, if you're shooting steel plates and you're training, you're not using like armor piercing or penetrator or that kind of thing. But if you're using AR 500 steel, be mindful, like 7N6, MA55, MA55A1, and obviously armor piercing is going to destroy your plates if you're close. Now, like your penetrators, like you're not true armor piercing ammunition, right? It's not going to straight up pierce it unless you're at like freaking 10 yards. But here's the thing, because it's got a steel core in it, or it's got some kind of penetrator, at the very least it'll pit your steel and weaken its integrity and its overall lifespan, right? Now here's the thing, if you get AR 500 steel and you're shooting ball into it, you could blast the bejesus out of that for a long time. Now here's an example of what I got. As far as steel that can have the absolute bejesus shot out of it, okay? This has had the crap shot out of it for over 1.5 years. This thing has taken tens upon tens of thousands of rounds, pistol, rifle, at various distances, much of it very close, okay? And only now is it starting to crack towards the head of the plate, inboard toward the neck, because you got a big old hole in here as far as where that thing gets hung up, okay? This thing has taken tens upon tens of thousands of rounds, it's been pitted and all that stuff, and this is AR 500 steel. You see what I'm saying? And pretty much any time that it was shot, okay, it was shot at close range and high volume. So guys that are out there saying, oh, well, you have to be minimum of like 50 yards to shoot it with a regular intermediate cartridge or ball or whatever. No, that's not the case, okay? That's not the case. If you want the target to last like your entire life, first of all, you just don't shoot very much, okay? And second, if you do shoot a lot, it simply is not going to last for, like forever, okay? It'll probably last a couple of years if you shoot fuck tons, right? But it's not gonna last forever. It's gonna crack. If something's gonna break eventually, because there's only so many supersonic beams that thing can take before you start having pretty serious issues, okay? So those are just some things to be aware of. There are so many different types of steel out there and so many hangout methods and so many different uses that people can have for putting up steel that I'm not really going to get all of them here, okay? And a lot of times, so long as it's rated correctly, you don't really have to go to a lot of different designers. A guy that knows how to use a plasma cutter and a welder and that knows how to weld a little bit can usually help you get away with a lot of different stuff. Does that make sense? So I hope that was helpful for a lot of guys that are looking into it. Just things to consider for guys that are going to do this. Okay. If you have eye pro and earmuffs, all the really sensitive stuff that can be hurt is covered. Okay. So if he gets spalled, all it really is an inconvenience or an annoyance rather than something serious. Okay. So there you go. If you're shooting high volume, like if you're shooting a lot that day, dude, just put the stuff on. Okay. I know I've come out and I've shot stuff without steel, without eye pro and stuff on before. I'm usually at around like 30-ish yards, and the ground underneath me is usually really, really soggy. But even still, that's my laziness, and it's something that I shouldn't do, and neither should you. Does that make sense? So, again, I hope this was helpful. If you got any questions, throw them in the comments box below. I'm going to remind you guys again that we're on Full 30 and BitChute if you want to watch us someplace else other than YouTube, because yeah, YouTube is going to do its own thing, but then again, so are we. So there it is. If you want to come out and take some training with us, our next available class is Pistol 1 and 2 out at Bud's in Lexington, Kentucky. Right? That's in the middle of next month, right? And that's 4 days straight of doing what it is that we got to do. By the way, if you guys want to help us out as far as Patreon and all that other stuff, you want to help support the channel, and you want to help support soldiers that come out and get training from us for free on your dime, by the way. Like the Patreon supporters is where this money goes. You can go ahead and follow the link in the description below to check us out. And if you want to get something out of this while training with us, there's a $35 a month program in which all you're doing is paying $35 a month and you have unlimited training with us for as long as you're signed up to that. We have a lot of classes that go up and we're usually training someplace multiple times a month. So all you got to do is a little bit of math and you can figure that one out, because we recognize how expensive this is, and we recognize that a program like this is something that we would have killed for while we were learning what it was that we were learning, and while we were going to classes and that kind of stuff. So I want to provide that to the guys who are gluttons for punishment and that kind of thing. So there you go. If you want to join the discussion page on Facebook, certainly there's a link in the description below. And remember guys, a regular guy's firearm is the last defense against tyranny. Be easy.